Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftswoman Jennifer Bleasdale. We're honoured to acknowledge Major General Naoki Kajiwara, Director General, Defence Plans and Policy Department, Japan, and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Roseville College, Woodport Public School and Montgrove College. And from Victoria, St Bridget's School, Greythorn. I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal John Alexander French, VC. John Alexander French was born at Crow's Nest in Queensland in July 1914, the son of Albert and Lucy. Known to many as Jack, he was affectionately known within the French family as Digger, a reference to the war that began not long after he was born. After attending Crow's Nest State School and the Technical College at Toowoomba, he worked at his father's hairdresser's and tobacconist's shop. French was a keen sportsman who played cricket, tennis, and football. He was popular, but was regarded as quiet, unassuming, and serious. French was among the first men to volunteer for the AIF in October 1939 and was immediately posted to the 2nd 9th Battalion, then being formed in Ipswich. His mother only learnt of his enlistment 2 months later when he received notice to begin basic training. His parents were again surprised when French became engaged to Dulcie McCann in March 1940. He decided to wait until after the war to marry her in case he came home wounded. French embarked with his battalion in May 1940, bound for England. The battalion entered camp near Salisbury and in November left for the Middle East. He spent several weeks training in Egypt and went into action for the first time in Libya, taking part in operations that led to the capture of Jeribab, the siege of Tobruk, and later forming part of the garrison in Syria. By the time the battalion returned to Australia in March 1942, French had been made acting corporal. The 2nd 9th Battalion remained in Australia until August, when it earmarked for Milne Bay in Papua, with its sheltered harbour on the southeast tip of Papua. Allied forces had selected Milne Bay as a major base from which to conduct operations in the surrounding area. The flat coastal area had good approaches and was suitable for airstrips, making it a key stepping stone for the Japanese in their drive towards Port Moresby. On the night of the 25th of August 1942, a force of 2,000 Japanese naval marines landed nearby to capture the base. From the outset, they were disadvantaged. The Marines came ashore 11 kilometres east of their intended landing area, and their intelligence significantly underestimated the Allied garrison. The Japanese expected no more than a few hundred troops, but were actually about 9,000 Allied troops at Milne Bay, including the 7th and 8th Australian Infantry Brigades and the P-40 Kitty Hawk fighters of numbers 75 and 76 squadrons RAAF. In the fight that followed, the Australians engaged the Japanese landing force and fought it to a standstill. The survivors forced to abandon the enterprise. It was the first major defeat suffered by the Japanese on land since the start of the war. On the 3rd of September, the Japanese attacked KB Mission in an attempt to capture number 3 airstrip. Bravo and Charlie companies of the 2nd 9th were brought forward and moved through the advanced companies of the 2nd 12th Battalion. They immediately encountered Japanese in strength. In a fierce fight, the Australians lost 8 men killed and 21 wounded, against 70 to 80 Japanese killed. The following day, Alpha Company and Bravo companies launched an attack. Alpha Company took its objective, but Bravo Company, of which French was a member, ran into the terrific fire. It was then that Jack French performed the action that would see him awarded a posthumous Victoria Cross. His citation reads, At Milne Bay on the afternoon of the 4th of September 1942, a company of an Australian infantry battalion attacked the Japanese position east of Buna Mission, where it encountered terrific rifle and machine gun fire. The advance of the section of which Corporal French was in command was held up by fire from 3 enemy machine gun posts, whereupon Corporal French, ordering his section to take cover, advanced and silenced one of the posts with grenades. He returned to his section for more grenades and again advanced and silenced the second post. Armed with a Thomas submachine gun, he then attacked the 3rd post, firing from the hip as he went forward. He was seen to be badly hit by the fire from this post, but he continued to advance. The machine gun then ceased to fire, and his section pushed on to find all members of the 3 enemy gun crews had been killed and that Corporal French had died in front of the 3rd gun pit. By his cool courage and disregard for his own personal safety, this non-commissioned officer saved the members of his section from heavy casualties and was responsible for the successful conclusion of the attack. Largely as a result of French's actions, between 60 and 70 Japanese had been killed by the time the Australian attack had ended. Further attacks were made in the following days until organised Japanese resistance collapsed. French's award was gazetted on the 14th of February 1943, making him the first Australian Victoria Cross to be awarded for an action that occurred on Australian mandated territory. On the 9th of February, the London Gazette had contained the announcement of an award to Private Kingsbury for his action on the 29th of August 1942, a few days before French's gallant action. The 2nd 9th Battalion's commander, Lieutenant Colonel Clement Cummings, said that you couldn't find a quieter bloke than French, but he had already earmarked French as officer potential. French's platoon commander, Sergeant Colin Bradford, wrote to French's parents, "As a mate of Jack's for the last 3 years, I can assure you that his death came as a very severe blow to me, especially as he was killed almost at my feet. Yesterday I called on his fiancée and gave her full details, for I am sure Jack would have wanted me to do so. Jack and I joined up in Toowoomba together, and since that day, we have never been separated. His career as a soldier has been faultless, and I shall not hesitate in saying he possessed remarkable courage. The Queensland State Government instituted the annual Corporal Jack French VC Memorial Prize in October 1943. It consisted of a gift of embossed books sent to high school students with the highest marks in English final examinations. French sat the examination in 1928 and attained his highest mark in English. Queensland Governor Leslie Wilson presented French's Victoria Cross to his father in December 1943. Also attending were his mother, fiancée, a sister, and French's only surviving brother. The third brother, Flight Sergeant Gordon Albert French, was serving in the RAF Bomber Command as rear gunner in the Lancaster crew when he was killed during a raid over Nuremberg in Germany just 4 months before the investiture ceremony. Aged 28 when he was killed, Jack French is buried at Port Moresby, Bunama War Cemetery in Papua New Guinea. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, among 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal John Alexander French, VC, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.